yourself a reviewer, reporter, or what would you consider yourself?
I'm a little bit of both. A film historian, I guess, is closer to the truth because most of what's going on in film today, as we know it, is just a lot of it leaves me cold. So and I guess I'm reaching that age. I'll be 54 this August, and so
Uh-huh.
I'm getting into that age range where a lot of the new quote unquote films
Yeah.
just don't appeal to me. They just don't. Even films from directors whose work I've admired are starting to leave me cold, and that's so I find myself,
Yeah.
but I'm open minded, and I do have a top 10 list, as from last year.
Mhm.
So there were enough films that I cobbled together, but but I'm mostly a film historian. I try to a couple of years back, I reunited the cast of the Summer of '42 for a 50th anniversary, and I conducted that, got them all together, and
Now, was that
uh,
on Movie Geeks United, or was that just you that?
yes, it was. It was. It was a YouTube. We also released it as a YouTube video. But yeah, it was all of the cast members, the four main cast members who were listed on the movie poster, with the exception of one. There was one that I couldn't get him. I tried. I had contact information, but he just didn't want to be bothered. But the other three, and one of those was Jennifer O'Neill, who was,
Mhm.
as you know, a big deal in the early '70s, and
Oh, sure.
she's still quite glamorous, even though she's in her '70s. She's not lost a step. She's still a beautiful, beautiful lady, and I really enjoyed talking to her and Jerry Hauser and Oliver Conant back in 2021 because that movie meant so much to me. I grew up as a teenager watching it on HBO, and it was really a pinch me moment when I was able to cobble together the cast. I was already friendly with the writer of the film, Herman Raucher, who sadly we just lost him December 28th. And his daughter and I had become quite friendly. And Herman and I conversed with Herman. That was on Movie Geeks United, and that went very well. Herman liked my interview with him, and so much so that he told his daughter he wanted it on his website, hermanraucher.com, which you can still
Wow.
find it there. And so Herman also wrote Watermelon Man and Ode to Billy Joe, and he contributed to The Other Side of Midnight. And, so he's his name's on a lot. Sweet November with Anthony Newley was
Hmm.
another film that he penned. So he had an interesting career, and we chatted, and that went well. And so a couple of years later, I thought, well, I'm on good terms with Herman. Let's see if we can put this together and get the cast of Summer '42. So I did that, and then I also I've been able to talk to some other people in conjunction with anniversaries of films, like PJ Johnson, who plays Madeline Kahn's assistant in Paper Moon. I did a 50th anniversary Q&A with her in conjunction with Paper Moon, which is my favorite comedy, one of my favorite comedies of all time. And then there's been several others that I've done over the years. I talked to David Seltzer, who wrote The Omen, and he had some interesting stories about the ideas that where he got the idea for The Omen and all that. And there are others along the lines that I talked to the editor of The Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars, Mr. Paul Hirsch, and that's actually a YouTube video you can see. And I did that in conjunction with the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, and he also was Brian De Palma's main editor for a lot of his early films, like Sisters and Blowout, and I think he was the editor on The Fury, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So and definitely Carrie. He was he had a long running collaboration with uh, Brian De Palma. So those are just a few of the people that I've been able to chat with, and it really is just exciting to me because these are people whose work I've admired and loved, and just to be able to show them my appreciation for what they've done and how they've enriched my life while they're still with us is a real gift. And like with Herman, who just passed, he's no longer with us, and but at least I was lucky enough to be able to convey to him what his film meant to me, Summer '42, and the other things that he had done. So that is the thing that I love doing the most. But yes, I am a member of the Southeastern Film Critics and the North Carolina Film Critics, and as such, I'm a voting member. I vote on at the end of the year, and those votes are taken into consideration when the Academy votes on the Oscars. So they actually look at all the different organizations around the country, and they see ours, and so that kind of goes into when they make their final decision, when the Academy is actually voting, they see what we've done, and so so I do have very minuscule input on the what winds up on the Academy Awards, but I am a voting member, and I get to see a lot of things before they come out to the general public, and so that's a nice little perk. I was able to see Poor Things a month before it came out, and watch it in my home, which was nice. So. Anyway, so those are some of the things that but yeah, and of course, as you can see behind me, I'm a huge collector of physical media. I do on my own podcast, Adam's Corner, I do a Blu-ray show once a month. I used to do one on Movie Geeks United, but Jamie, my co-host, retired the show. He had been doing it for nearly 20 years, and he was just, the time was right for him, so I started my own thing. And I still am a big proponent of physical media, because I was just listening to a YouTube video today where they were talking about All That Jazz. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, and yet it's not available on any streaming site anywhere at all. And so, those are the kind of movies that we're in danger of losing if it's not for physical media, so that's why I'm a big proponent of the discs. And of course, 4K is what we're getting now, and that's the final stop on home. It's kind of sad in a way. It makes me wistful, because I've been collecting physical media since 1985, and knowing that we're at the end of it, because the human eye can't detect much more picture information than what a 4K disc can produce. And so that is, to me, it's great in a way, because we're seeing things in the best quality possible. Some of these transfers are mind-blowing if you've got the right equipment to watch them on. But then when you stop to think about it, you think, this has been a lifelong journey for me since the mid 80s. And now this is the end of a phase, and it's not, and there are not going to be any more upgrades. And so anyway, that's a roundabout long way of getting to the answer of the question you asked. But I'm sorry for being so long-winded and having such a shaggy dog story there, but that's kind of it.
No, it's good. It's good information. I know that through all your interviews for Movie Geeks United and moving into Adam's Corner. So Adam's Corner, you can see that and listen to it on multiple platforms. You can see it on Spotify or listen to it on Spotify.
You can, yeah.
Are all of them video recorded, or just audio recorded, or is it a combination of both?
Well, obviously they're all audio recorded, but occasionally I will do the video. I interviewed the creator of the Incredible Hulk television show, Mr. Kenneth Johnson, back in September, and he wanted to do a video because he had some behind the scenes photos from the Incredible Hulk that had never been seen by the public. And so he wanted to share those with me. And so I said, well, sure, absolutely. I mean, we'll do a video for that. And so I got a lot of nice positive feedback. I'm still getting some nice comments there on YouTube. So that was a video. I did a spot. The podcast version was slightly different, because I edited in some sound effects and the promos for the 45th anniversary of the second season opener, Married, which was a big deal, because the second season opener of The Incredible Hulk was actually released as a theatrical film overseas, The Bride of the Incredible Hulk, and it also was the first science fiction television show to win a non-technical Emmy. In other words, it won an Emmy for acting. In this case, Mariette Hartley, who played the doomed second wife of Dr. David Banner. So that was the occasion for speaking to Mr. Johnson. And of course, he created the show and he wrote and directed that episode. And it's so that was a video. And then I've done a few. We have if you know anything about drive-in cinema from the 70s, there was I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And so there was a movie studio here in my backyard, Earl Owensby Studios. It was a big deal in the 70s. He made films strictly for the drive-in circuit, and that's something that's not done anymore. And his studio is comprises of 9 sound stages, I believe, and it's literally about 45 minutes from where I'm sitting. He built it in a cow pasture, and he had a tool. He had made his money from the tool business and invested it in a movie studio. So I did a colleague of mine had done a documentary on Mr. Owensby and his life and career, and he's still with us. He's in his 90s now, Mr. Owensby is. And so the guy who did the documentary on Earl Owensby's life joined me for a video. So I did. That was one of the episodes of the podcast, and we spoke about Earl Owensby's career in conjunction with the 50th anniversary of him launching the EO Studios, as it was known. So yeah, occasionally there will be a video, and I've got one in the that I've released as a podcast. Mr. Nat Sakaloff, who's a very prolific author on film history books. He did 3 just last year, one on Scarface, one on the Exorcist series of films, and one on the Towering Inferno. And I interviewed him in conjunction with the release of the 40th anniversary book on Scarface. And that's a video that I haven't posted yet, but I hope to soon. But the podcast is up there, but I just haven't gotten around to doing the video version. So yeah, there are some videos and occasionally, but it's mostly just audio, because it's easier to do, less labor intensive. And I've reached that stage in life where, I just want to get it up there and get some product out there for the handful of people who follow me. There are a few of you, and thank you all. Those of you who do.
Let me ask you this: what day does do your podcast usually drop? You have a specific day where people can look for them?
Yeah, Saturday nights at midnight, unless I have a guest. Now, next week, this upcoming week, as we're taping this, it's going to be a little bit delayed because my guest isn't able to tape until Monday night. So it'll be a Monday night affair. But if everything's going, according to schedule, it's typically Saturday nights at midnight. So that's what I try to stick to that unless something unforeseen happens, and I know in advance that my guest is going to be not able to do it until Monday. So it is what it is, as they say, but it'll be there. You'll get some product next week. And the last 2 episodes I did were in memoriam episodes, which, it's people we've lost in the year 2023. And I tried to be very inclusive and try to really get people from all different, there's movie and television and literature, but also some notable political figures as well, like Henry Kissinger. So I did that. That was enough to cover 2 episodes because there were quite a few, unfortunately, last year, and some real. None. It's never good to hear that people whose work meant something to us have passed, but some of them were more surprising and bigger losses than others, I would say. So, but nevertheless, they all deserve to have tribute paid to them, and so I did. So.
Well, now they can see those as far as the in memoriam. They can see those on Adam's Corner. You've got in memoriam 2023, part 1 and 2. So they can go right to Spotify and see what we're discussing right now. So it seems like you were doing interviews with Movie Geeks United for about 7-8 years. Was it 8 years?
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's interesting with even the limited time I did things with Movie Geeks United and some of the interviews that I did, it's just always fascinating to meet people that you've seen on screen or that you've seen in documentaries. So it seems like in reading some of your posts and seeing the people that you interview, it seems like you've made friendships with a lot of these people that you've met. Is that true?
That is true. And I've actually made friends with some of the people whom I never got to interview and whom are no longer with us. Like in one case in point would be the character actor Richard Paul, who played Jerry Falwell in the People versus Larry Flint movie that came out with Woody Harrelson. Mm-hmm. He was in Carter Country and a lot of things you would know him if you saw him. And I've become quite friendly with his widow, and she's told me many great stories about Richard Paul. It's just sad that I never got to meet him. He's been gone 25 years now. But in some cases, I'm meeting these people I never got to know in life through their surviving family members in some cases. So that's great too. But yes, there have been some friendships. PJ Johnson, for one, who is from Paper Moon, has become a really dear friend. She sends me greetings each year at Christmas and Father's Day and birthday and all that stuff. And knowing how much I love Paper Moon and how much I love her in it, she's just a hoot. She's just the best. And so she's just as great in real life as she is in the film. And so, that's the bonus is, and of course there was Eddie Deason, whom I interviewed he was one of the early ones I interviewed. He's in Greece, of course, 1941, and I Want to Hold Your Hand, and so many other films. And I interviewed him in 2017, and then when I went out to LA in March of 2019, had lunch with him at Pink's Hot Dogs out in LA, and had a nice broke some bread, and he was just as funny and engaging in real life as you might expect. So that was just
what's interesting. Peaks. There've been some. There are a lot of great restaurants in LA, but if you want to see people, and if you want to wait in line a long time for a hot dog, that's Pink's.
Pink's is great. One of my favorites, of course, El Coyote, the Mexican place out there, is wonderful. But my personal favorite is Cantor's Deli. I wish I could take Cantor's Deli and bring it home with me every time I go out there, because it is just. Last time I was out there, had a panini that they made it right there, fresh off the grill, and it was just, and the coffee, and it was just, it's delicious. And the pastries they have when you walk in the door, and it's just, it's wonderful, beyond wonderful. It's what makes life worth living.
Did you go to the farmer's market?
Yeah, I've been there before, several times. Yeah. There's some great stuff there too.
There's a round table of writers, and I believe some of them are directors as well. That I believe they still meet there in the farmer's market. They did for like 20, 25 years. And you have to be invited into the group. You just can't turn up and expect to start talking with them, because it is a public, venue. But that's always fascinated me, because I went to an elementary school just down the street, and I used to live about 3 blocks from farmer's market. So I would go there. My grandmother worked at the Candy Kitchen, which old timers will probably remember was one of the best chocolatiers there in Los Angeles, Carson's Candy Kitchen. And they used to, CBS was right next to, people that don't know, it's at 3rd and Fairfax is where the farmer's market is. And then you have the Grove, which came later, which is right next to it, which took up some of the space that was dedicated to the farmer's market when they first started. I think it was back in the 40s, I think. Farmer's market's been there a long time. But what happened, since you got CBS right next door to the farmer's market, Carson's Candy Kitchen in the 70s, when I was growing up as a kid there, they would, if they had to have a chocolate gun or something where somebody had to eat a gun, they would pretend it was a real gun and they start eating it. That's where they would make the guns. They were very exclusive chocolatiers. They could do anything in chocolate. So that was kind of fun. I know where that gun came from, that chocolate gun. So, LA it's a lot different now than it was, but there's still so many fun things you can do there in Los Angeles. And that makes me really happy that you become friends with these folks, because Adam, folks, he is what you see. He is what you get. He's a very nice man and very respectful of people. That's how you make friendships. You got a lot of surface people in this world, and Adam's the real thing. So I encourage people to go and watch your stuff. He's on Twitter. He's on, Spotify, Facebook as well. So you can find him. I'll put it in the links here to his various media. Let's see. The other question though, and we were talking at the beginning about how films have really, they've just become so generic and are so to me, they're not very exciting anymore. I still have to go. I remember Jamie from Movie Geeks United had kind of stopped watching a lot of the new films. He'd like to watch the older things, and I'm really that way now. Or I'll go to Europe and watch some foreign films. And I've been doing that since, I don't know, as a teenager. Because the structure of the films and the language difference, it leaves you guessing, because I've seen so many films. I don't know, 10,000. I've just, when I tell people, it's like, no, there's no way you could have seen that many films. I have. Within 5 minutes or less, if I go and see a film, I know the structure of it, what's going to happen by the end or the next 10 minutes. It just gets boring, because Hollywood is so structured in the way they want to make so much money, so they keep repeating things over and over. And Disney was one of the ones that did that a lot. They kept repeating the same storylines, just changing the mouses and the dragons, and they just kept changing it up. But what do you find is people always talk about wokeness and all that stuff, but there seems to be more than that. It seems to be laziness of writing. It just seems the writing is just horrible. What is your opinion?
Well, I think there are hundreds of great scripts out there that are waiting to be filmed. They're out there. They're sitting there. There's the famous blacklist that comes out every year of the greatest unfilmed scripts. And so there's lots of great opportunities out there. But the problem is that we've reached an era where studio heads and the people who are running these studios, they're just looking at the bottom line. Greed has just overtaken things to the point where it's all about making the biggest amount of money in the shortest amount of time. And so the going logic is, well, let's spend 150 million, 100, 300 million. So maybe we can recoup $1 billion, if we're lucky. And so they keep taking these bigger and bigger gambles. And it's always these franchise films and these tentpole films. And unfortunately, the films that you and I grew up with that were mid-range, films like, well, a good example would be Forrest Gump from 1994. Of course, everybody knows it won Best Picture, and that film could never be made today because they don't make those they're not in that business anymore. That's a mid-level. It cost, I think, $50 million at the time, or maybe I believe it was 55 million, I believe. But anyway, it was less than 100, but definitely not a micro budget film. We'll say that. And so those kind of films that you used to see getting made, they're just not, because they're not franchise, they're not IP, and because they want to make as much money as they can with a recognizable name. And so that's what's happening. And so it's really sad when you think about films like Star Wars or Alien. Somebody had to take a chance on those films when they originally came out. Somebody had to roll the dice. In the case of Alien and Star Wars, it was Alan Ladd Jr. over at 20th Century Fox. He was the guy who took a chance. George Lucas had been turned down famously by everybody, even Universal, who had financed his previous film, American Graffiti. Even they didn't want anything to do with Star Wars. But Alan Ladd Jr. said, I'm going to take a chance on this kid. I think he's got something interesting here. And well, the rest is history. And so you're missing these studio heads. Robert Evans is another good one, because he used to roll the dice, and they knew that they weren't always going to succeed in these, you take a chance, and some of these films will do well and some of them won't do so well, but hopefully you don't spend as much money making them so that when one does well, it can kind of make up for the one that didn't do so well, and so that's why, Robert Evans, of course, famously had, there were films that he greenlit, like Rosemary's Baby and Love Story, and those did well, and The Godfather, of course, but then he rolled the dice on a couple that didn't do so well, like On a Clear Day You Can See Forever and and Paint Your Wagon. There were a couple of musicals there that he just, that really didn't do well, but he did, he took a chance on them. And then, he had a Darling Lily, that's the Blake Edwards film that famously flopped. So there were several films.
At the time, see, this is the thing, when you get older, I saw a lot of these films first run.
Yeah.
And at the time, if you went and see Darling Lily, it was actually very well received from the audience. It maybe flopped, but it's interesting that at the time it was kind of fun. I mean, it was different, and different is good, always good to me. And talking about Paper Moon, at the time, then and now, it was a terrific film, and it was, oh God, it was so. That's the film everybody wanted to see when that came out. Everybody was talking about that film. But that's another thing you don't hear anymore. You don't hear everybody talking about, you got to go see this film. You got to go see this film. It's just not, there's so much content being pumped out.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just like everything gets lost in the mix. But Darling Lily, though, I saw it when I was 12, maybe 11, something like that, with my parents, I think it was.
1970, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's amazing how some of these films will age and some will become more popular, and you'll remember ones that were dogs when they came out that are now really popular.
Yeah.
Go, man, that wasn't very well received. I can see where Darling Lily perhaps wasn't well received, but it's just wild to me to see another generation pick up and look at a film in a totally different light.
Yeah.
Or get down on a film, or say, wow, this is horrible, the way they treated women, or the way they treated this person, or the way they treated. Well, no, that's, it's the time. It's not,
that's right.
Not made now. you know. But I just I just miss going to the cinema. I miss going in and walking into something, just looking at the lobby cards, which you don't see anymore, and
No,
going, "Hey, this looks pretty good. I think we can go see this film." Those lobby cards make it look really exciting, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't know when
Yeah.
they stopped lobby cards, but that was really something when you could go in and take a look and really decide, on how the photographs they chose from the film. Star Wars was a perfect example of that.
Oh yeah.
They had great lobby cards, and so it's just that's why I think it's important that we have people like yourself that really love film, that can give that spark to a new generation to come in and watch these films, which is important because there's a lot of subject matter kind of hidden in these films, and you think at the end of the film, oh, that's what they were kind of going, that's what they were saying, or it leaves you thinking about, they don't just flat out tell you what they wanted you to think. They leave it ambiguous for you to think, you know.
Yeah.
So to make you think, I think is still real important. But how many films make you think anymore? It's like just flash and bang and Marvel, people flying all over the screen, and
Yeah.
it's just I
Agreed.
don't know. I really like films that make you think a little bit. So
Well, I'm right there with you, and like two of the biggest hits of last year were Barbie and Oppenheimer, and those are two films that I was lukewarm on both of those films. Barbie, I felt like it had a good message. I mean, to be that women, female empowerment, I guess you would say, that's a great message. I'm all on board with that, but it was the execution of that message that I had a problem with. The film stopped for an entire 5 minutes while a character speechified. And it's like your movie shouldn't stop for an entire 5 minutes just so a character can have the speech, unless it's, I mean, I guess an argument could be made that Network did that sort of thing, but it did it a whole lot better, in my opinion. And, it's just,
people
like,
still quote Network, though.
yeah,
People
that's
still
true.
quote from that
And
film.
will they be quoting
Yeah.
Barbie 30 years, 40, 50? I don't know. But I think if you want to do a message film, you need to have a really good story first and then lay your message on top of the story. And that's what Rod Serling used to do. He taught us that he would have a good social message, but he always had made sure to have a good plot. And then he laid his message on top of that. And I think the problem with Barbie was it's message first, and then let's see if we can find a plot that makes the message work. And I think that was where I had a problem with it. I took a lot of heat for that because a lot of people love it, and they, and again, I didn't hate it. I mean, I thought that it's, at the beginning of the film, there's an homage to 2001 that I laughed out loud. It was very clever, and there was some good stuff in there. But it just, as it went on, I was less enthused as it went on. It started off with a bang, and just after about 25, 30 minutes, it really just kind of lost me. And Oppenheimer was just, I can only imagine what Oliver Stone would have done with the material that Christopher Nolan had to work with on the story of Robert Oppenheimer, and the invention of the bomb. And Oliver Stone could have just made a banger of a film with that. And somehow it was just, just, I guess, like a 3-hour series of montages to me, with a constantly blaring atonal music score. Not even, and that's a whole other subject we could talk about, the death of the film score, with melodies that we could hum after we walked out of the theater. That's another thing of the past. Nobody cares anymore. And I
Well, how
think
many,
that,
you used to
yeah.
whistle if it really stuck with you, you'd whistle what it was. How many people whistle anymore? I mean, nothing really sticks anymore. It's just constant sameness.
Yeah. Going back to Darling Lily, as a callback to that, one of my favorite songs of all time is in Darling Lily, and it opens the film. And it's, even though Darling Lily has its flaws, the opening scene is incredible to me. And it's just Julie Andrews in the dark on stage. You can't see the audience. She's singing to an audience, but it's completely, it's complete darkness. She's on the stage, spotlights on her, and she's singing "Whistling Away the Dark." which is a Henry Mancini composition. Oh my God, that's just such a beautiful song. That gets me every time. It makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. So that
Even
movie, if
yeah,
nothing else, it has that. So
even if when Blake Edwards fails, he still succeeds
that's
in
right.
one way or
Yeah,
another. You know.
yeah. The way that scene is constructed, and the way it's shot and edited, it's just, oh, it gets me every time. And I think, this movie is not technically a great film, but it does have that. I always tell myself that. So
Well, that's the
yeah,
thing about a film. I mean, you'll have parts that you'll remember,
yeah,
even if it's small parts like the music that you're talking about now. But movies now, I don't remember anything of. It's just one thing after another. The structure is not, it's just the sameness. I don't remember very few. Do I remember anything about or the music or anything really? And you get with a lot of films they use music from years ago. I guess it's the music
yeah,
industry wanting to put those in so they make more money for the artists and collaborate with the filmmakers. But that kind of gets old too. I'm
yeah.
tired of watching a Vietnam War film and then they play the same music over and over in each Vietnam War film for the excitement of the helicopter coming in. And it's like, oh man, you know,
Yes,
that just gets old,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah, and my
And
favorite film of last year was The Holdovers, and Alexander Payne. I just thought it was a beautiful film, and it's getting a lot of criticism in the press from a lot of people, mainstream critics, who are saying, oh, it's too schmaltzy, it's too old fashioned, it's too sentimental,
that's
and
the way films were. That's the way
yeah,
films
that's
used
the
to
way they
be.
used to be, right?
That's
Yes,
exactly
exactly.
that's where you go in and that's a good film in my opinion. That's a well-made film. That's
Yeah,
something
it is.
you get the feeling it's from the 70s. You really it's a kind of a time
Mhm.
warp, which is a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
it's
it's
it's just where we're at. Anytime a film like, and a couple of years ago, I remember Green Room took a lot of heat as well. And, Green Room's not perfect, but it wasn't nearly, everybody, you would have thought that that a federal crime had been committed by them awarding it Best Picture. And I thought, this is not a bad film by any stretch of the imagination. It's kind of a throwback to things we saw, like Driving Miss Daisy. But, Driving Miss Daisy has its charms. I know there are arguments to be made that there are better films from 1989 that probably should have gotten the Academy Award that year over Driving Miss Daisy, but Driving Miss Daisy is a solid film. It is what it is. Yeah, I don't have any qualms about it. So, and Green Room was kind of like that. And so that's what I see a lot of that happening. Anytime we see a film that's kind of a throwback to things that we remember fondly, they start the name calling, and it's and a lot of, but like I said, I'm just not responding to a lot of the films that are getting the critical uh, applause, I guess you would say. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once last year was, a huge. It was the Best Picture winner, and it left me cold as well. I mean, I found it mildly amusing. There were a few things in there that I enjoyed, but by and large, it wasn't for me. And so, I just feel like I'm being increasingly left in in the past. And so but it's fine for me if we see less and less films being released that I'm interested in, because there's so many films that I've missed over the last 5, 6, 7 decades that I need to catch up on, and we all have blind spots, and so that's fine with me too. It's fine. And you've got labels, you've got boutique labels now, like Kino Lorber, Studio Classics, Arrow, Criterion, and the Vinegar Syndrome even is putting out Little Darlings next month, believe it or not, which we never
really.
thought would ever. Yeah, we never thought that would come to video, because the music rights were tied up in limbo, music rights hell for 40 years. It's never gotten a physical release since the VHS days, and they untangled the rights, and it's going straight to 4K. It didn't get a DVD release. It didn't get a Blu-ray release. It's going all the way to 4K in February, courtesy of Vinegar Syndrome. And the rumor is that another film that has been tied up in legal rights limbo because of the music, Looking for Mr. Goodbar, the rumor is it's coming before year's end as well. So, it's it's happy times for people like myself who are, big proponents of physical media. So it's fine if the new films are just not something I'm interested in. And I'll just continue to bask in the glory of the new releases that are coming on a weekly basis from these boutique labels. And the studios are licensing these titles out to these smaller labels because, frankly, they don't care about them. They don't know anything about them. They're hiring people to run their catalogs who don't care. They just look at a spreadsheet. They see a title like All That Jazz, like we mentioned earlier, and they're like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, I don't know. That's not a tape. That's not a title I'm familiar with. Oh well, we'll give it to somebody else." So they sign over a package of movies to a boutique label who do know what those films are, and they put them out with tender, loving care. And so, God bless those boutique labels, because I'm just grateful for them, and I'm so grateful that, and Shout and Scream Factory is another one. They're just doing the Lord's work, as the saying goes, and I'm so grateful that they allow me to review their product and talk about it, and Warner Archive, of course, that's another one. So there's so many of these boutique divisions and labels that are just doing great work, and they will be doing work for the foreseeable future. I'd say probably in the next 10 years, you're definitely going to see the end of physical media. I think probably sometime in the 2030s, I would say, and because that's it's going to come to that eventually. But for now, there's so many things that haven't been issued yet, and there's a lot of titles. Another title that I'm hearing is being worked on is Around the World in 80 Days, which won Best Picture, and that's been problematic because the elements where it's in such poor condition. But the rumor is again that's being worked on. So there's great stuff in the hopper, as they say. So. It's fine.
One thing I would tell people to be a little cautious about is that if you constantly just stream films, they're not really yours. That's digital media. If you look at Adam's wall back there, those are physical. And there's going to be a point where they may take off a film that you love, and you would think, oh, it's always going to be available to me streaming. And no, it's not making money for them, or this reason, that reason. It might be a copyright issue or on music or whatever. And it's just not worth it for us to to promote it anymore. So it's gone. Disney has done that, I believe, recently. And so I think having something in hand is very important still. And Adam does do reviews of Blu-ray releases. You can. Now, is that also, that's separate, or is that included with your interviews? Do you put it all in together, or have separate?
Those are separate episodes. Okay. And my good friend Noel Manning, who does the he's a director of media relations for Gardner-Webb University, and he does a cable access show called Meet Me at the Movies. And so he'll have me on once a month where I do I'll hold up the titles and you can see them on his show. And so we do he calls it the home. I forget what he calls it, but it's something tied to home video. But he has a more clever title for it. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, he just posted an episode, and like I said, it's actually on the local television cable system here, and then he posted it on YouTube. But we did a wrap up of the November and December titles, and that just posted a couple of days ago. So yeah, I'm a frequent guest on his show as well, and occasionally I will go up on YouTube and post a video of some of the current releases. Like I was thinking about that I needed to do one for some of the Kino Lorber titles that have come out this past month, because there's quite a few interesting ones. Coming Home has been reissued, the Hal Ashby film, and The Russians Are Coming. And as we were taping this, Norman Jewison has passed away. We just heard that. He was the director of The Russians Are Coming. So they timed that right to be releasing that in January. So we're so I'll probably be doing something like that here pretty soon. But yeah, it's you've got. But the other thing you that we need to mention too is in terms of streaming. I think people don't realize that the bandwidth can provide is about 15 megabytes per second with the streaming rates with your picture quality, and with a 4K disc. Like I recently got the Color Purple. The Warner Brothers redid the Color Purple on 4K, and I think it was peaking at about 85 megabytes per second versus 15 that you get on streaming. That's quite a difference in picture. So if you've got the right equipment, it can really be eye-opening to see the difference in quality from what you get, and it's just the limited pipeline. You don't have as much, because there's so much stuff coming down the pike. You've got to limit the pipeline. So it's just the way it is.
Oh, sure. That's that's a really valid point for why you should still have the physical media, because it's not going to look the same, and you might get something that you watch is 480 or something online, especially if you're traveling or something in different countries. The bandwidth is not as good. Plus, as you said, you're never going to see it as perfect as you see it on that Blu-ray disc.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
I unfortunately, I hope it doesn't. I don't know. Kind of thinking it's going to go like vinyl, where vinyl was kind of, it went away and then it came back, and then it was more expensive when it came back. So that might be the same thing with Blu-rays or whatever. They'll go down. Oh, I can just store that on my, hard drive or my, whatever. But the thing is, they deteriorate and they go bad. And if you've got 100 films on a flash drive or something or whatever, try to view it and it's not working, and then you put all your money into that or whatever,
That's right.
That's not good. So
that's a good point. And the other thing that's worth mentioning too is a lot of these boutique labels, they're only licensing these titles for a certain number of years. So when the licensing rights are up, they go out of print. So you need to get them while you can, because, in the case, a couple of years ago, case in point, Shout Factory put out a Blu-ray set of the Pink Panther films with Peter Sellers. And they put all of those out, and they went out of print after about 3 years, and they're now going for, $300, $400, $500 on eBay. So, because they're not available anymore. And luckily, I was able to get one while they were still affordable. But
inside connections, baby, inside connections.
Yeah. So
but what I was going to say real quick, we're kind of over. We were going to just do this for about 30 minutes. We're a little bit over. Adam,
I'm a chatterbox.
You want to talk for a little bit more? I had a couple more questions.
Sure, that's fine.
We can wrap it up. If just let me know if this is too long or if you still want to hang around. Okay. So my question is going back to you said there was 100 films that there's a list of 100 films that are not made that are quality, very well written. Is there a site you can go to, or where would you say the list of those films?
Yeah, there's definitely a site. You can probably just Google it, the Blacklist, because, and I don't know if it's theblacklist.com but it'll link you there. But yeah, it's an annual list that's published every year of the best screenplays that have yet to be produced. And so if you just Google Blacklist, you'll find it. And there have been books published about, blacklists in the past, films that, that were considered to be great scripts, but just for whatever reason, they didn't, sometimes it's cost prohibitive and sometimes they just don't want to roll the dice. They're just kind of gun shy because they're afraid they won't get, and, you're never going to know if you don't take a chance.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because they filmed, Francis Ford Coppola filmed Megalopolis?
Yeah, right.
And they had to shut down at least one or two times, I believe. Two times, because he was self-financing, and they came back and they reshot some scenes and did some things over, because I knew some background actors, because I used to work background myself, who worked on it. That was like to work even as a background on one of his films, you have to go in, you have to have your resume printed, and you have to have a copy of your photo right on the resume. This goes back to the old school of doing things, and go in with it yourself.
Yeah.
And then you wait for hours, and then they'll call you in, and whatever they're going to get you to do, walk this way. I want to see how you walk and how you look on camera, and it was a big deal to get selected for that as a background actor when that happened. So I'd be interested to see how that comes out, but that goes back to, God, it took Francis Ford Coppola, I don't know how many, 30 years to get that made, something like that, 20.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and he sold his vineyard to finance it, and so you gotta give him the utmost respect for putting his money where his mouth is, because he, not too many filmmakers will do that. I mean, Oliver Stone mortgaged his house to get Nixon finished back in the 90s. So there have been a few directors who have done that sort of thing, but there aren't too many. So.
What's interesting, there's so many films. I mean, this is something I really, really, really hate. All the dystopian films that are coming out and everything. There's no future for us. There's no future of America. There's no future for the world. But what he's doing, Francis Ford Coppola, he's kind of changing that up now, because this is more of a positive view of the future, which is, to me, is going to be fantastic. I hope we get more filmmakers that don't, the world is going to end by 2050 kind of thing. We're going to be living, become cannibals and all this stuff. All this, it just gets old. I'm so tired of seeing everything filmed like through a lens of a swamp or something. It's like swamp making films is what I call it. It's like, yes, it's going to be horrible. Let's go film in a swamp and show how people how bad it's going to be. That's what I call them. But my other question for you now, you talked about your list of the best films in 2023. What are the films that you like the most that people really haven't seen or didn't give a chance, or that just came to the cinema quickly or just went straight to DVD? Are there any ones that you could recommend to folks?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Now, one of them is actually a cheat. I'm looking at the list right now. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. But Apollo 10.5 was an animated film that actually was released in 2022, and I didn't catch it until last year. It's directed by Richard Linklater, who made the Before films, the Before Sunrise, and of course, Dazed and Confused. And it's an animated film about growing up in the late 60s and the early 70s. And it just captures the time and the period just amazingly, like no other film that I've seen. It just makes you yearn with nostalgia for the time that we grew up in. And I mean, it's there's a lot of humor in it, but there's also a sense of kind of like bittersweet melancholy that runs through it. I just loved it. I was so sad that I missed it when it originally came down the pike. But it's on Netflix. It was financed by Netflix, and so that was a cheat because it was actually a 2022 film. But another one is Shortcomings. Shortcomings is a film that's based on a graphic novel that I was quite fond of. It's about a college grad who graduated from film school, but he likes the kind of films that you and I are talking about here. And he wants to make his own film, but he realizes that, what he wants to do in life is a little more difficult these days. The kinds of films he wants to make are kind of a thing of the past. And so he's having trouble with his girlfriend. And it's just a really humorous film about an old soul trapped in the body of a 20-something. And I really responded strongly to it. And another one is The Old Oak, directed by Mr. Ken Loach. Ken Loach, of course, has been making films since the late 60s, mid-60s, actually. I think he started with Poor Cow was his first film. And he made a lot of dramas for the BBC is how he started his career. But he makes films about the working class. And all of his films are really just about the struggles of people to just make ends meet, who work in who are in the lower echelons of society, I guess you would say. And The Old Oak is basically about this tavern in this community where the guy who runs the tavern decides to open up a kitchen in one of the unused rooms and start serving food to some of the illegal immigrants that are not illegal immigrants, but some immigrants who have come to town. And the people who resent the immigrants, they are bent on destroying his new upstart business. And so it's just a movie again about the struggles of the people in society that we don't really see in films too much. And so it's not quite as good as his last two films, which Sorry We Missed You and I, Daniel Blake. Those were really spectacular. This is a little bit less than that, but still quite good. And Turn Every Page was a documentary about the editor. It's about this. I'm trying to think of the name of the author. He wrote a series of books on Lyndon Johnson, and I think it's Robert Gottlieb was the editor on those books, and it's about the relationship between the editor and the writer of these books that's gone on since the 70s. And so he's getting ready to publish his 5th volume of these Lyndon Johnson biographies, and you see the artistic arguments they have and the working relationship they've got. And so that's a really powerful documentary, Turn Every Page. And the Albert Brooks film, documentary on Albert Brooks that was on HBO Max. Defending My Life was quite good, and Fair Play was a kind of a throwback to Fatal Attraction in 9.5 Weeks. It was an erotic thriller, but it was kind of playing on the battle of the sexes. It's about this two people in this relationship, and the female counterpart in the relationship gets a job promotion, and the male counterpart is resentful of that. But there's all kinds of, like I said, sexual tension and eroticism in the film. And it's also it was a Sundance favorite last year. Netflix snapped it up and put it on their on their site, so you can see Fair Play. But that was a terrific film. You just don't see erotic thrillers anymore like we used to. So there was that. So yeah,
are we talking body heat kind of thing, or what are we talking?
Yeah. It's it's just, well, it starts out with well, I probably shouldn't say, because we don't want to get we don't want to be, but it's pretty graphic at the beginning of the film. Let's just say that it's pretty, and I was shocked because it's the kind of erotic stuff that we don't really see in films anymore. It used to be commonplace. We would see, like you were saying, Body Heat or 9.5 Weeks, Fatal Attraction, but there's a love scene between the two main characters in the film at the beginning, and it's definitely something that was refreshing to see after. But it's just eroticism in the film in film has just gone kind of like the way of the dinosaur, unfortunately. It's it's all about, and I think it can be attributed to the ready availability of the easy availability, I should say, of pornography on the internet. I think kids can just, they can just go right to the end result, as it were, and there's no point in the erotic, the tension that you used to see in these films. To me, that was part of the, the tension between the characters, and just cutting to the chase, as it were, it's not as fun, it's not as interesting to me. So Fair Play is a throwback to those kind of movies. So see it if you're interested.
Interesting.
So,
I remember Lady Chatterley's Lover back in the 70s.
Yeah, Sylvia Crystal.
If you get a sneak peek at that when you were a kid, that was like big deal. So yeah, that was something.
There's a more recent one too on Netflix that I heard is pretty erotic and more faithful to the book. I haven't seen it, but anyway.
It's interesting how things change and some things don't change.
Yeah, that's true.
But Adam, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it. It's always nice catching up with you. And God, I was trying to think when I first met you. I think it was at the Atlanta Film Festival. I think so. It was.
10 years ago this March. 10 years ago, 2014.
2014. That was it that long ago?
Yeah, It was 10 years. We've known each other 10 years, my friend.
Wow. I used to think when older people would say time really travel, it flies by, but man, It sure does. It's not. Hey, kids, so you kids out there, it does fly by, okay, when you get older, But I would say definitely, take some time, go to Adam's Corner. Adam is such a great film historian and reviewer, and pick up some Blu-ray DVDs, because they're going to mean something to you one of these days, and when you can't get them anymore. So Adam, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Oh yeah, it was my pleasure. The pleasure was all mine. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for having me on.
And remember, Adam's Corner, right? That's what it's listed as on everything.
That's right. Go to Spotify, Adam's Corner. It's easy to find, or you can Google it. It's there. It's Googleable.
Adam, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great week, man.
Thanks. You too.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right. I appreciate it, my friend.